Hello! We have 5 stories today with a little update and insight at the end. It's part 3 of the Bucket Woman saga. The first part is one of the most popular videos I've ever done, and there's been a flurry of activity. So I released part 2 recently, and we're catching up fully today with part 3. One disclaimer though, these are very much in sequence, and you absolutely must watch part 1 and part 2 for them to make sense. You've been warned. Much like our star, the modern-day hyacinth bucket, it's Bouquet, who can't seem to keep to her property line, her bins, briefs, bushes, or business. All the bees. Story 1. Bucket Woman versus the bins again, and my partner. For the uninitiated, the house next door is haunted by a living woman who is fixated on bringing the bins in by 9 a.m. because they make the street look messy. My partner Martin nicknamed her the Bucket Woman because of this bin curfew, as he said it was like living next door to Hyacinth Bucket. Our Bucket Woman has been known to blockade driveways with empty bins to drive home her point. Another piece of relevant background. Over the last couple of weeks, I've been having an allergic reaction to something outdoors, so I've been staying inside. Good news is, it's gotten under control and I think we've worked out what plant it is. Bad news is, for Martin anyway, I'm permanently excused from weeding. Since I was staying indoors, I didn't bring any of the bins in. Bucket Woman hovered around, repeatedly checking the bins and getting more frustrated. I went about my business looking after new human. Okay, I was sleep deprived due to noisy wild creatures, and if someone even looked at me wrong, there was going to be a smoking hole in the universe. When Martin came home, he brought most of the bins in, except for the recycling bin which hadn't been emptied. He reported it to the council as a missed delivery, using their web form, because the council offices were closed. Now here's the important bit. The council instruction is to leave the bin out until it's collected. So that's what he did. Cue Martin's first act of pettiness. He attached a neat sign to the bin lid saying something like, "Missed delivery, reported to council," and the date. That didn't stop Bucket Woman from checking the recycling bin several times, each time getting a bit more aggressive in slamming the lid back down again and flouncing off. This went on all weekend. Outside, periodically stalk to the bin, fling the lid open, peer inside, make dramatic gesture, slam lid shut, flounce off. Inside, ignore with the occasional snicker. Cue Martin's second act of pettiness. He added another sign. "Leave the bin alone, Hyacinth." Only he used her real name. The replacement delivery happened on Monday. I was out, and when I got home, I had a tired new human and groceries to wrangle, so I left it. Martin normally deals with any bins out when he gets home, but today he wanted to come inside first and talk about our days. So he left the bin too. We were in the front room when we heard the sound. Martin ran out the front door and down the path, with new human and I following. The bin was lying on its side in the road, and the Bucket Woman was hopping around on one leg. In complete silence, Martin opened the gate, glared at the Bucket Woman, his angry face is terrifying, picked up the bin and put it back. The lid was broken. Martin glared at the Bucket Woman again. Bucket Woman attempted a dignified hobble back next door. Still in silence, Martin went back inside. New human and I followed. After a few minutes in the office, Martin came out again, holding 2 new signs. Sign 1, broken bin reported to council. Date. Sign 2, don't damage council property, Hyacinth. We don't have to leave the broken bin out until it is collected, but we were anyway because we're petty like that. Recycling is collected fortnightly. I have not seen this with my own eyes, but apparently Bucketty is on crutches. The story doing the rounds is she stubbed her big toe on something and broke it. I say nothing, but my smirk is worthy of a certain politician. For the unfamiliar, the politician is ScoMo, or Scott Morrison, a former Australian PM known for his trademark smirk. Bucket Woman sighting. I can confirm she is on crutches. I don't know exactly what happened, because her usual methods of communication are complaints put through our letterbox. Well, that or visits from authorities, and neither have occurred yet. The neighborhood explanations vary from the mundane, stubbed a toe, to the ridiculous, crushed by a wombat? The broken bin is still out, waiting to be replaced. She seems to be leaving it alone, possibly because someone has drawn a big pair of eyes on a piece of paper and stuck it to the top of the bin. Sounds to me like it's Bucket Woman 1 and bin one on account of them both being injured. Can't wait to see what happens next. Martin has evolved his signs into letters for Dear Hyacinth. He's just so delightful. Story 2. Bucket Woman versus the Broken Bin, yet again. She won't let up. Despite the signs and someone putting hand-drawn eyes on the side of the bin facing her house. Following the downing of the recycle bin, Martin has tweaked the camera angles a bit, and we've repositioned the recycle bin so it is in full view of the cameras and close to the front gate. Things are not running to schedule this morning. We slept in. Also, sorry for any mistakes, and need caffeine. After the baby and fur baby rush hour settled down, something made me check the monitor by the front door. On the camera, I could see the bucket woman approaching the bin from across the road on the other side, away from the eyes. I wonder if they scared her. She looked like she was trying to appear casual, but because she is on crutches, she actually looked more like Matron Dorothy Conniving Witch, trying to sneak up on someone. Sneak, sneak, sneak. If you don't get the reference, Google Let the Blood Run Free. It's an anarchic Australian comedy from the early 1990s. Consider yourselves warned. It may be the lack of caffeine in my system making me cranky, but I jammed my finger on the intercom and said loudly, "Leave the bin alone." I hope she didn't hurt her foot again. Edit. Did Bucketty jump in the air? No, she kind of hopped around on one foot, flapping her crutches a bit while she looked around wildly for the source of the mysterious voice. Ooh. My apologies for not including that info in the first place. I've since had coffee and a shower, refereed a cat spat, and made a start on Mount Dirty Laundry. I'm getting back on track. Oh my gosh, I wonder if Bucket Woman thought that it was the bin that told her to back off. It does sound like she was trying to stay out of its line of sight with those little googly eyes, staring at her. She's so crazy. Story 3. Bucket Woman versus the bins. The universe provides an unexpected sequel. Last week, one of the bins wasn't collected on bin day. I came back from my appointment at around 5 p.m. and realized it was still full. But there was an air of recent activity around the poor bin. I went inside and checked the council website. There were delays. Please leave the bins out until collection. So that's what we did. Because Bucketty puts her empty bins out for collection and brings them in at 9 a.m. sharp, she was the only house in the street with empty bins. At one stage, she was literally standing in the middle of the street, throwing her hands up in the air at all these full bins still out, making the street look messy. One of the neighbors had to blast his horn to get her out of the way. This week, I was on the council website again to check if I needed a permit for imaginary chickens. Woo! Imaginary chickens. Cluck, cluck. The answer is no. And not for real chickens either if it's less than 10. There was no information about imaginary roosters. The council had a prominent notice on their website saying the delays in the rubbish collection were expected to continue for several weeks. It added to please put your bins out as usual and leave them out until collected. Martin was at work, so I texted him the news. He texted back that Bucketty will get her knickers in a twist over this. I texted back that she can twist her own knickers as much as she likes so long as she leaves the ones in our rubbish bin alone. P.S. Someone speculated I'd gone quiet because the interior decoration police had finally caught up with me. My execrable taste and I are still free to roam the street, but we have a new tooth. Actually, new human has the tooth. She grew it all by herself, but it kind of feels like a family effort. So recently, I've been having to wake up earlier on collection day to make sure that my garbage and recycling are out on time. It's weird, but all of a sudden the pickup times were super early. I think I missed at least 2. It's almost like they put me at the start of their route when I used to be in the middle or at the end. Why are you telling me this, Cece? You might be asking yourself. Well, it ties in because in spite of those 2 misses, I don't think I've ever experienced the number of misses that are described in these stories. It's almost like the garbage company is in on it. I mean, poor bucket lady. She is on the verge of being pushed over the edge. I can just see her in the street, crutches extended upward, yelling, "The whore! The whore! What is this world coming to?" Okay, enough with the theatrics. On to story 4. Bucket Woman versus the 24-hour tenants. By now, we probably all know I live next door to a rental property which is haunted by the Bucket Woman, or Bucketty as we affectionately call her. At first, I thought Bucketty was the landlord, but now it turns out she's not the owner, so we think she is some kind of caretaker. Unfortunately, she extends her caretaker role beyond the property boundaries into the street and especially into next door, us. Her areas of special concern are rubbish bins, grass, snakes, and underwear on washing lines. About a year ago, her last tenants left after I told them she was going into their house while she was at work. I thought they were her last tenants, but then it turned out she did manage to find someone else to lease the property. Only they lasted less than 24 hours and never actually moved in. Apparently, the 24-hour tenants approached our friends in the street and asked what it was like to live in the area. They said they were planning to rent the place next door to us. Our friends said they warned the 24-hour tenants that the Bucket Woman's last tenants had left suddenly. At that point, they didn't know the reasons why or my involvement in that, and that she spent a lot of time hanging around the street. The new tenants decided to sign the lease anyway. They got the keys from the agent and went around to start measuring up and deciding where to place their furniture. According to my sources, while they were doing that, who should walk in but the Bucket Woman? In the version I heard, Bucketty tried to impose additional terms on the new tenants. These included monthly landlord inspections and inspections without notice. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. She also gave them a lecture on keeping the place clean and tidy, bringing the bins in early, and demanded they keep their miniature breed dog outside. There are also versions circulating where she demanded to use the front garden as a landing strip for her broom, but I think that one might be made up. So, in time-honored Aussie tradition, the new tenants apparently decided she could go and get stuffed. They marched around to the agent, handed back the keys, told the agent what had happened, and refused to move in. As far as I know, the property is no longer available for rent. Totally unrelated life advice: keep your iPhone in a silicone case away from your teething infant. The baby and the phone are okay. The baby drool wiped off fine. But the case has experienced a gnawing it will never forget. These 24-hour tenants probably thought their new neighbors were exaggerating. But that was before their sighting of an encounter with Bucket Woman. Nothing welcomes people to the neighborhood like news that the neighborhood wingbat will enter their home whenever she pleases. Speaking of encounters, let's move on to the sequel. Story 5. Close Encounters of the Bucketty Kind. Earlier this week, I took the vampire baby who has 2 upper and lower teeth now, and looks a bit like the baby at the end of Vampires in Havana, out to a sing-along run by the council. I got to sing Pat a Cake and Incy Wincy Spider, and hang out with all the cool babies in the neighborhood and pretend I was cool too. When we got home, I found someone had planted a Bucket Woman on my nature strip, right where we usually put the bins. She'd taken root and was staring at the interior of a moving van parked at the nice neighbors' on the other side. I'd forgotten it was moving out day for them, but Bucketty hadn't. She stood there most of the afternoon and watched as the movers packed the neighbors' furniture into the van. I mean, I guess 3D furniture Tetris might be fun for a while, but I certainly couldn't spend the whole afternoon in the one spot watching it. Especially not after the movers started getting annoyed with her, and especially not on someone else's nature strip. Bucketty's bladder capacity must be awesome too. I can't believe that thought went through my head. But now I have a bit more of an idea how she knows so much about my furniture. She probably stood on that very spot and watched the movers unload our stuff. So, this week, Martin is being very slow to bring the bins in. He seems to have developed a mysterious ache in his back that doesn't need anti-inflammatory cream. Massages gratefully received, though. However, it suddenly flares up when faced with bringing the bins in. He predicts it may not fully resolve until the new neighbors move in and unpack. Since he took such good care of me when I injured my facet joint, I am being a kind partner who is fully supportive of his recovery. Petty of us, I know. Edited. Because it turns out not only do I sometimes confuse left and right when I am getting a migraine, but I also confuse upper and lower, it seems. It could be worse. My brother sometimes struggles to talk in complete sentences when he gets one. I will stand by the baby at the end of Vampires in Havana comparison. It's the toothy smile and the puff of hair. Update. It's official. I have a migraine. I put the dental cat bickies in the hairball control cat bicky bowl and vice versa. I have inadvertently insulting catkind and inciting a house-wide cat strike. I put my stepson's school trousers in my eldest daughter's room and my eldest daughter's fluffy cardigan in my son's room, and the kitchen scissors in the freezer. We actually have a sixth story, but it was a tiny update with a lot of background info in the comments, so I've decided to add it on. Update. One of these things is not like the other. One of these things doesn't belong. I just got back from my GP appointment and found 4 things on my nature strip. Can you guess which is the odd one out? Household waste bin, paper plastics recycling bin, glass recycling bin, Bucketty. It looks like the new neighbors are having some work done before they move in. And like a magnet, she's back watching what's going on. Standing elbow to bin lid with my household waste bin and my recycling bin almost as though they're on a picket line. Why isn't she standing on their nature strip, where she would get a better view? I'm guessing even Bucketty knows not to annoy men with power tools by standing in the middle of them and staring at them while they work. More unrelated life advice. If you are taking your infant to an open-air art installation for a bit of culture that doesn't come from yogurt, do pick a time when there isn't a great swan standing in the middle of it. While undoubtedly safer, I don't feel we got to fully appreciate the artist's creativity from inside the car. Edit to add. Okay, I probably have some swan-related trauma from when I was a child and a ginormous black swan chased me for my sandwich. In the comments, Blue Bettas asked, I love these Bucket Women stories. So is no one living next door? Does Bucket Woman live there? If not, then where does the Bucket Woman live? I've always been confused about where she came from and why she seems to be there all the time. OP replied, that's okay, we're confused too. Nobody is living next door at the moment. We've been told that Bucket Woman lives nearby. It must be fairly close because we never see a car or a bike or anything like that, just her. Neighbors who have been here longer than us say she has a husband. I don't know anything about him either, but I picture him as a long-suffering Richard Bucket. Apparently there are other rental properties too, but I have no idea where they are. I can't imagine she gives them as much attention as she gives the property next door to us. There seems to be a family connection between Bucketty and this property. If neighbors are correct, which may account for her high level of emotional investment in that particular one. After the last tenants left, tenants who actually live there, I mean, she complained to me that she had to come around more often, to keep an eye on the place now, because there is nobody living there. This was back when we still spoke. We know she puts the empty bins out every bin night and brings them in again the following morning. We think that's so the place looks lived in. OP added, she's a bit, how shall I say this, over-involved? Which may explain something about why the place next door is empty. We think she comes over to make the place look occupied. Just putting the bins out and bringing them in again the next day is 2 visits a week. Even more if she's cleaning the junk mail out of the letterbox. Edit to add. I have wondered if her marriage broke down and she spends so much time next door because she's avoiding her husband. Bucket Lady having problems in her marriage? No. What could possibly lead anyone to that conclusion? I mean, yeah, she constantly monitors the slightest movement of every single individual she encounters, questioning and criticizing what they do and how they do it. But isn't that the making of a successful marriage? Over-involved is one way of putting it. I think it's more in the realm of obsessive with a sprinkle of deranged, but in an endearing way as told by OP. Fingers crossed there's more to come. And that's it for today. Until next time, shine bright, Starlight. Yahoo! If you've enjoyed the story and would like to hear more, consider liking, subscribing, and leaving a comment. Thanks, and bye for now.